want to do the minimum possible to alter the condition of that watch, but also protect the integrity of that watch. I want to take a few minutes and talk about buying vintage watches and what to look for. The biggest thing we see in the vintage market right now is too much work being done to the watch. 15 years ago, we would take the same watch, we would take a Rolex 5513 and replace everything on it, replace the dial, replace the hands. Because we fixed it 15 years ago to those specifications, we've destroyed the value of that watch in today's market. One of the main things that I see are when hands get changed. The hands no longer match the luminous on the dial. They don't match the paint on the dial. This is one thing I'm very adamant about when I do any kind of vintage restoration. As soon as I remove those hands, I turn them upside down, I check the condition of the luminous, and I'll actually seal the hands again with lacquer. This is something that you won't see as a consumer. When you're buying that watch, you won't know it's been done, but you can check the top of the luminous. You want to make sure the colors match between the indexes. You want to make sure the color matches between the luminous dots on the dial and the hands. I think the biggest issue that I see is how many of the components, the movement components, which they can't see, that are inside the watch, have been changed, have been altered. We call them Franken watches because they're assembled out of a lot of different parts to be turned into what is considered a valuable or a very rare timepiece. This isn't always the case. They'll take 3 watches and make one good one because that market demand is so high for that timepiece, but that doesn't mean that's what that watch was when it was born. Having mechanical work done to a vintage watch is fantastic. I do mechanical work, I do vintage repairs. We'll change gaskets on all those watches just to make sure the water resistance is there for the watch, even though the brands will no longer guarantee their watches are water resistant over 20 years. Do your homework, know what you're buying, ask for the pictures, ask for the movement, make sure the serial numbers work with the date of the watch. There's very good records out there, be it Omega, be it Breitling, be it Rolex, as to when that watch was manufactured. If that movement serial number doesn't coincide with the manufacturer, what the number on the case, then you know there's something not right and you're better to stay away from it, because a watch that has been put together is never going to gain in value. We do run into some situations where there are no longer OEM parts. We talk about a Valjoux 72, which is a repair I recently did on a Rolex Daytona. There's one certain part in there that actually breaks 70% of the time you go to tear one apart, and that is the ratchet winding wheel. And what happens is, because on the Rolex you have the screw down crown, if that watch is not serviced regularly, if the case is not serviced regularly and the crown is defective, when you go to screw that crown back down, that watch is still in the winding position. And this is a manual wind watch, and what happens is the mainspring doesn't break, but it actually breaks the teeth on the ratchet wheel itself. Those parts are extinct. The original Valjoux parts, they no longer exist. There are manufacturers though who fill a need, and they will go ahead and reproduce that part. In my estimation, there's nothing wrong with using a high quality replacement part when the original's not available. One of the things I'd like to point out is, if you want a vintage watch and you like the look of a vintage watch, look to Tudor, Omega, or Breitling. Any of those brands are all revisiting the vintage look. They have off-color dials, they have weathered looks to them, and they're coming out with those pieces for the people that like that watch, that wanted to buy that watch 30 years ago and couldn't afford it. They can afford it now, they buy that watch, and you don't have the same issues as far as components and replacing components in that watch. If the watch looks too good to be true, it is too good to be true. The watch should have dents in it, it should have character dents, it should have scratches. It's vintage. Don't look for perfection, because if that watch has been polished, if anything has been done to it now, in today's market, that actually reduces the value of that timepiece. People want to see the scratches, they want to see the nicks. That's all part of the character of that watch, and that's why people love their vintage timepieces. I'm Michael Michaels, and this is what I look for when I'm buying a vintage timepiece.